Let me take you back to the beginning. Before the lies, before the deleted messages, before the guilt that feels like a physical weight on my chest every single morning. I was with Mark for 5 years. 5 years. In internet time, that is basically a lifetime. Mark was the kind of guy you dream about marrying. He was stable, he was kind, he remembered my coffee order. He got along with my parents. We had this comfortable, predictable rhythm to our lives. Friday nights were for takeout and movies. Sundays were for meal prep and laundry. It was safe. It was warm. But here is the thing about safety that nobody tells you. Sometimes safety feels a lot like suffocation. Around year 4, something shifted. It wasn't a big explosion. We didn't have massive fights. It was quieter than that. It was the silence at the dinner table. It was sitting on the couch, scrolling through our phones, physically touching but emotionally miles apart. I would look at him and feel nothing. Not hate, not anger, just a flat, gray boredom. I started to wonder, is this it? Is this the rest of my life? Just paying bills and watching Netflix until we die? I didn't talk to him about it. That was my first mistake. Instead, I retreated. I pulled back. And that created the space for someone else to step in. Enter Julian. Julian was everything Mark wasn't. He was chaotic. He was intense. He was a new hire at my office, and from the moment he walked into the break room, the air in the room changed. You know that feeling when you lock eyes with someone and it feels like an electric shock? That cliché? It's a cliché for a reason. At first, it was innocent. Or at least, I told myself it was innocent. That is the biggest lie cheaters tell themselves. We convince ourselves we are just being friendly. We are just being nice to the new guy. It started with lunch, just a group of us going out. Then it became coffee runs, just the two of us. Then it became Slack messages that had nothing to do with work. We would joke about our boss. We would share memes, excited. And I found myself checking my phone constantly, waiting for that little notification sound, that hit of dopamine. I remember coming home to Mark one evening. He was cooking dinner, wearing that old t-shirt I used to love. He asked me how my day was. And I looked at him and I felt annoyed. I was annoyed that he was so nice. I was annoyed that he was so predictable. I compared him to Julian instantly. Julian was exciting. Julian actually listened to me, or at least the version of me I was presenting to him. Mark just knew the real me, the tired me, the boring me. The emotional affair started months before anything physical happened. And honestly, the emotional part is almost worse, because you are giving away pieces of yourself that belong to your partner. You are sharing your dreams, your fears, your jokes with a stranger. You are building a whole secret world that your partner has no access to. I remember one night, Mark and I were in bed. He was asleep, breathing softly beside me. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was 11 p.m. I knew who it was. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. It was Julian. Just a simple text. I can't stop thinking about our conversation today. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt guilty, yes, but I also felt alive. I felt desired, and that feeling is a drug. It is so addictive, I typed back. Whispers. And that was the moment I crossed the line. That was the moment I chose the fantasy over my reality. Fast forward 2 months. The office holiday party. I knew I shouldn't go. Or I knew I should go, have one drink, and leave. But I spent an hour getting ready. I wore a dress I knew Mark would think was too much, but I knew Julian would love. I told Mark I would be late. Don't wait up, I said. The party was loud. The music was thumping. I had 2 glasses of wine on an empty stomach. I saw Julian across the room. He was looking at me. Not looking at the room, looking at me. He walked over, and the rest of the world just kind of blurred out. We went outside to get some air. It was freezing cold, but I didn't feel it. The adrenaline was keeping me warm. We stood there, talking about nothing. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. He moved closer. He brushed a strand of hair out of my face. In that moment, I had a choice. I could have stepped back. I could have said, I have a boyfriend. I could have called an Uber and went home to Mark. I had a split second to save my life as I knew it. Whispers. But I didn't. I leaned in. When he kissed me, it wasn't like the movies. It wasn't romantic. It was desperate. It was frantic. It was the release of months of built-up tension and selfishness. It felt like burning down a house just to see the fire. We ended up at his apartment. I don't remember the Uber ride there. I just remember the feeling of absolute detachment. It was like I was watching myself from the ceiling, like I was possessed. I silenced my phone. I saw a text from Mark. Hope you're having fun. Love you. I deleted it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to be reminded that I was a monster. The next morning was the hardest moment of my life. Waking up in a bed that wasn't mine, the smell of someone else's detergent on the sheets, the sunlight hitting the room in a way I didn't recognize. The reality crashed down on me like a ton of bricks. The high was gone. The excitement was gone. All that was left was the cold, hard fact of what I had done. I looked at Julian sleeping. He didn't look exciting anymore. He just looked like a stranger, a mistake. I got dressed in silence. I called a car. The ride home felt like a funeral procession. I kept rehearsing what I would say. Would I confess? Would I lie? Could I hide this? When I walked through the front door, Mark was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. He looked up and smiled. That smile broke me. It shattered me into a million pieces. Because he trusted me. He had zero reason to doubt me. He saw the best in me, even when I had just done the worst thing possible. "You're home early," he said. "Want some coffee?" I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fall to my knees and beg him to leave me. But I didn't. I did the coward's thing. I smiled back. Whispers. "Yeah," I said. "Thanks." And that is when the real nightmare began. Because the act of cheating is one thing. But the lying is a cancer. It eats you alive. For the next 3 weeks, I was a ghost in my own house. Every time Mark touched me, I flinched. Every time he said, "I love you," I felt like a fraud. I started picking fights with him just to justify what I had done. I told myself, "See, we are not happy. It was okay that I cheated because we were broken anyway." I was gaslighting him. I was manipulating the person I was supposed to protect. I tried to break it off with Julian, but I couldn't. It was like a sickness. We kept texting. We met up one more time. It was the classic spiral. Once you break that moral code, it becomes easier to do it again. You tell yourself, "I'm already a bad person, so what does it matter?" But secrets have a way of coming out. They always do. It happened on a Tuesday. A random, boring Tuesday. I was in the shower. Mark was looking for a photo on my iPad to show his mom. My iPad and my iPhone were synced. I didn't hear him scream. I didn't hear him throw the iPad. I just turned off the water, wrapped a towel around myself, and walked into the bedroom to find him sitting on the edge of the bed. He wasn't crying. He wasn't yelling. He was just staring at the floor. The silence was deafening. Pause. It was louder than any scream could have been. He held up the iPad. On the screen was a message from Julian. Explicit. Undeniable. Proof. "We need to talk," he said. Whispers. His voice was so quiet, so broken. I didn't try to lie. There was no point. I saw the look in his eyes, the light going out, the trust evaporating. In that 1 second, 5 years of history, of memories, of inside jokes, of building a life together, it was all incinerated. Gone. The conversation that followed is a blur of tears and accusations. He asked me why, and I couldn't give him an answer. Because I was bored sounds pathetic. I wanted attention sounds childish. I don't know sounds like a lie. He packed a bag that night. Watching him fold his clothes, watching him take his toothbrush out of the holder, it was surreal. I stood in the doorway, unable to move, unable to stop him. When the door clicked shut behind him, the sound echoed through the entire apartment. And then, silence. Absolute, crushing silence. I sat on the floor and I cried. Not for him, but for me. For what I had lost. For the person I used to be. I cried because I knew, deep down, that I had traded a diamond for a rock. I had traded stability and true love for a cheap thrill that didn't even last. The weeks after were a blur. Our mutual friends took sides. His side, obviously. My parents were disappointed. I became a pariah. I was the cheater, the home wrecker, the bad guy. And Julian, the exciting, intense Julian, The moment things got real, the moment my life fell apart, he vanished. He didn't want the drama. He wanted the fun mistress, not the broken woman with a ruined life. So I lost Mark and I lost Julian, and I deserved to lose them both. It has been 6 months now. I live in a smaller apartment. I spend a lot of time alone. I've had a lot of time to think. And here is what I learned. Cheating isn't about the other person. It's never about the other person. It's about you. It's about a void inside you that you are trying to fill with validation from strangers. It's about being too cowardly to communicate your needs. It's about selfishness. If you are watching this and you are thinking about straying, if you are texting that coworker, if you are deleting messages so your partner doesn't see them, please stop. Look at what you have. Look at the person who loves you when you are sick, who loves you when you are boring, who loves the real you. Don't throw it away for a fantasy, because the fantasy isn't real. But the pain you will cause, the damage you will do to another human being's soul, that is real. That is permanent. I would give anything to go back to that boring Friday night on the couch with Mark. But I can't. That life is gone. And I have to live with that every single day.